what it was like being a 10-year-old Mark Moore. You know what I could tell you? I remember like it was yesterday. For some odd reason, this moment sticks out in my head, and that was I was walking up the steps to the front building of the elementary school that I was in, Thomas Jefferson, and I was talking to my friend. I was just like, I can't wait to grow up. I just wanted to be a grown up. For some odd reason, I never fit in as like a kid. I always had like an old soul. I just wanted to help people. I wanted to do certain things. I had a different mindset than most kids, and so I just couldn't wait to grow up. I was always that young kid that was always looking for older mentors, and that's where my kind of head was at being 10, believe it or not.
Okay. All right. Now tell me a little bit about your school and like how that was.
Like being in school or martial arts school?
Being in school as a kid.
Being in school as a kid, I would say first through fifth was great, and then it was just downhill from there with middle school and high school. Well, growth, reaching puberty, I had pimples, I had the braces, I had the glasses, I was thin, I was unathletic, I wasn't smart, so I was 0 for 3, looks, sophistication, and athleticism. So that put me as a primetime bully target, and it lowered my self-esteem. So it wasn't fun being in middle school and early high school. And it wasn't until I found the martial arts, and that's when it started to give me something to do after school, a bigger purpose, a sense of accomplishment, because I wasn't excelling at anything else.
Yeah, and you mentioned bullying. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, that started in 2nd grade, and I've always been a nice person, still am, but never really I don't think anyone likes to be in situations, where they feel inferiority complex, but started in 2nd grade, and then 6th grade got bullied again. Just had some key moments, and I think everybody did, but for me, it was like I didn't have that, like, oh my goodness, I'm being bullied, like I said, I got no friends, and then not being smart, not being athletic, and it's like not being the good-looking kid. It's just like, is there a win anywhere? So it just kind of made it seem like, things were not going to go my way for a long time.
Does like one incident stick out to you?
I would say, 3 incidents. 2nd grade, like I told you, 2nd grade, I was out there at the school before school started. We were walkers, and as I'm standing out there, there's no teachers, there's no parents, so there's nobody out there to help you, so you're just kind of standing by yourself with other kids around you, and then wham, out of the blue, I get shoved to the ground, and I get back up. I thought it was an accident. It wasn't an accident. Get shoved down again. So it was just a little schoolyard predicament to me, but it was a big deal. I was like, why would someone do that to me? And I was so scared. 6th grade again, I was in the lunchroom, and a kid came over and just knocked the whole applesauce out of my tray. I remember like it was yesterday. And in 9th grade, another kid threw an apple at our lunch table. And you know what? And when someone says, how do you like those apples? I was like, I don't like apples. Between the applesauce and the apples. But when someone's like, well, that happens to all of us. And you know what? And we all do get bullied from time to time. Or like little instances like that happen to you. But for me, it was just like, they just kept happening. And I always felt the insecurity of, it's because of the way I look. Or it's because, I'm just not confident like everybody else. It's because I'm sitting at the lunch table with 2 kids instead of like 12 kids. And that's why we're kind of taking on the abuse. So I definitely remember those key points. Well, always watching the karate movies as a kid, and it's funny because every Karate Kid movie was based. The storyline was based on basically you have the kid who doesn't fit in, who's weak. He gets bullied. He finds this sensei and this guide who turns him into somebody that he wants to be, that he admires. So I watched all those movies, and then finally my friend, he started the martial arts, and he brought me one time as a friend, and then from there I fell in love with it. I found my first instructor, and he had these trophies wrapped around the whole karate school. He had his pictures on the wall, and it was just like, what? I want to be that. And the martial arts allowed me to improve myself. It wasn't about being smart. It wasn't about being athletic. It was about just making myself better. And I kind of fell in love with that process and the way that it made me feel. I have to say, it always brings me back to training for my brown belts at the old karate school when I was probably, I think that would be about 16, 17 years old. And I was the dojo rat, meaning that I was always in the dojo. I was there early, I was there late. I stayed after class, everybody went home. And then one day my instructor asked me to start working there. He started to ask me to work the front desk, started teaching the classes. So it was like, wait a second, you mean you trusted me and you look at me as somebody that could run the school a little bit, at such a young age after I'm looking up to you. So I started to become that person that was always in the dojo. And what sticks out in my mind is I remember it was the end of the night, everybody would leave, I'd hang the heavy bag up, and I'd be there for hours. And it'd be a school night. My mom would call me at the dojo. What are you doing? Where are you? Okay. I'm like, I'm fine, I'm just training. It would be about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. And I'd stay there and I'd find his old videos of my instructor. He would train and he would be on the USA National Karate Team. He traveled the world. And I'd find these tapes and I put them in the VCR at the time. I don't know if you know what a VCR is, right? But I found the cassette tape, I put it in the VCR, and I would just sit there and watch. And time would just go by. I wouldn't get tired. And I would just be glued to it. It was my first foundation of seeing what passion was all about. You always listen to people, they say, I'm passionate, I'll do whatever it takes. I was willing to do whatever it takes just to absorb and become a better martial artist. Well, it's funny. I was always the type of person, you asked me what kind of kid I was. Since I was that loner, I was always looking to discover things. When an idea popped in my head, it was like, I have to do it. And it didn't matter, what was going to stop me or how I was going to act on it. So I wanted to start learning how to box. And I got on my bike. And nowadays, people would never let their kids ride this far. But being in Washington Township, I rode my bike all the way to Glassboro to a place. I was 13 years old and not knowing what I was going to expect, and going there and just like, hey, I want to start boxing. You know what I mean? Thank God the guy was nice. You know what I mean? He showed me around a little bit. And no one took advantage of me. Like, hey, come on in, be a punching dummy. You know what I mean? But a great experience was that. And that kind of infused in me just having that go-getter personality. It's like whatever I wanted to do, I was willing to go out there and make happen. And no one knew I drove my bike that far, so sorry, Mom.
So when did you know you wanted to open up a school?
17 years old. Once I got a chance to run the school, and then I met another mentor who was a coach for setting goals and reaching your true potential. And he had a program called Program for Results. And he sat me down as a guinea pig because he was going through school and he was graduating with his psychology degree. And he made this book, this kind of like personal goal-setting workbook. And he said, hey, Mark, I would love to use you as a guinea pig to fill out this and see how it goes and to set your goals with you and keep an eye on you and kind of hold you accountable. So I was 17, I wrote in the book, and I said one day I would love to own my own martial arts school. At that time, I had no clue what really happened, but it was the setting of that seed that kind of sparked what I have today. I would say the biggest challenge was getting the school that we're in now. We used to be in another school, and it was called Underground Martial Arts, literally underground. And that was it. That was a cakewalk, meaning that it was 800 square feet. It wasn't a lot of rent because we were in a basement, and I was working on the weekends as a DJ for weddings, and so that would make the money to support the business. As I was just kind of goofing off and teaching karate, really not business-like, but I found a mentor, and I had an opportunity to get the place that we're in now, and the place that we're in now is a $500,000 building. And we had an opportunity to buy the building in 2 years. We had the lease to own. And when we opened up the doors to start our first day here, we only had $700 on our bank account. And in 2 years, we needed over $120,000 to buy the building. And we had no clue where we were going to get that money. We only had about 50, 60 students. And in 2 years later, we had almost 300 students. And so I would say that was the biggest challenge, but at the same time, I never looked at it as a challenge because to me it was just like, I love this. It's going to work out just because I love doing it. And if you help enough people get what they want, you'll get what you want.
So why was it so important to you to open up the school? Like, why did you want to do it?
Because of the feeling that the martial arts gave me, that feeling of like, oh my goodness, it's like, I feel so good about myself and I'm not getting any smarter. I was becoming a better athlete through the martial arts, but it wasn't becoming any cooler. Me personally, myself, my true potential was being tapped into, and it was giving me such a powerful feeling, and all I wanted to do was like give that to other people, because that's who I always was as a little kid. Being 10 years old in elementary school, I was always on a search to making everyone else happy because I love being happy and I want to make other people feel the same way.